So that's a good learning. And I read one of the essays that your student wrote about you. It says that your philosophy of life is to be fair to everyone.
Yes.
No matter what they are, what kind of people they are. So tell us something about that philosophy.
It's nice to hear from my students that philosophy, actually, to be honest. One of the biggest things in teaching, so here I had a phenomenal time teaching. I taught high school for 5 years. I made sure that I taught at a AP level, so I had 2 AP level courses. I had 2 honor courses, and then I had a standard level course, and then I had a very college prep kind of a course. So students that really didn't want to be in math, they had very little interest or didn't want the capabilities to be spending. I don't want to say they're not intelligent, because they had a lot of other benefits, but their focus was in mathematics. And so in that I could see, that was probably the most interesting class for me. The AP level students were interesting because they were intellectually challenging. We had great discussions about what correlation was and why, what it actually means when you're reading the newspaper and things like that. On the other hand, when we talked to the 2 levels, I guess they were called at the time, they gave me a whole other world. And so I had to really make sure that when I looked at everybody in the classroom, no matter where they were coming from or what their focus background was or interest in math was, I had to be very fair to them. So whoever they were, I wasn't there to change them. If they wanted to skip the class, that's unfortunately, I disagree with it, but I can't force them to come to class. And even if, like, my son does something, I can't force someone to be someone they're not. So it was very important to be fair, meaning that that keeping in mind that they're not going to change for me. What will change is their love for mathematics or their respect for me to come to class. And I remember a student of mine, I don't know if I can describe this, but he was very tall, bahut mota sa, a really tall guy, pura baal, itna lamba baal, just one of those stereotype people. Would come into class 20 minutes late, barge in, sit down, and the first 2-3 times I had class with him, always late. And I would just sit there and smile, and you could tell that he was so used to having, he was so used to having people complain about it, But to me it was okay, you want to come to class 20 minutes late, you just missed 20 minutes of it, you're going to have to make it up. You want to pass, everybody wants to pass. And slowly but surely I would start talking to him about why, why are you coming too late? And is it really worth doing the extra effort later on and being upset about it? And that space that I gave him, it's interesting because a year later he refused. He went to the guidance counselor. He sat in the guidance counselor's office and said, I'm not taking anybody but Dr. Karna. I don't want anyone else's class. And it was amazing because he started at the 2s level, and I was teaching the next year. He would have to be at a standard level course, so he'd have to jump a level. And he was willing to work that much harder to have me in class because he thought he could learn more. And have that, and it wasn't because he was skipping. He stopped skipping. By the end of that year, he had stopped skipping. He was there every single day. He was there after school, and it was because he had to prove to himself and maybe even to me that I can actually do this, and I don't have to be have an attitude. I don't have to have anything that's negative all the time. So I think that the fairness came into that part of it, because if you were unfair and if you were always adamant about this is the principle, you have to be late, you're going to be sent to the office.
Everybody has their own principles.
Yes, right. So it was important to be, I think that's what the students meant, was they always told me at the end of the year that I let them be who they were, and that was the most important thing. And it's the same thing with family. I think you have to, everyone is not perfect, and maybe you'd want your family to be one way or the other. I'd want my son to be this and that, but at the end of the day, he is who he is, and you really have to love and respect that part of that person. So
talking about family, I have an interesting question for you.
Sure.
And you can choose if you want to answer it or not.
Sure.
So when I was showing your profile to my wife, and she said, like, it must be tough being spouse of such an intelligent, lady.
Oh.
You have so many achievements, and so is that true?
Not at all. My husband's, I was very lucky. And one of the things you mentioned, how does someone do all these things? It's because I've had so much luck. To be honest, it's, you work very hard, but there are a lot of people that are working very hard and they don't get anywhere. So I can't take all that credit. Really, the matter is you're waiting half an hour for me. Someone else would be waiting somewhere. And there's a lot of breath that people are giving me to to accomplish what I want to accomplish. And I'm lucky to have that. And my husband is one of those people that has always wanted me to do my best. He agrees in that philosophy. And so getting my PhD, he was with me when I got my PhD. And always pushed me forward, would be up at night with me. My mother, same thing when I was in high school. You know, raat mein you start studying for so late, 2, 3 in the morning, and she would sleep on the couch just to give company. You know, आप ये पढ़ाई कर रही है, हमको यहाँ पे wait करना चाहिए.
She'll make coffee for you.
Yeah, I'll get up in the morning at 3 to make whatever food I wanted. And those are things you can't take it granted for. That's just luck. And my husband I'm very lucky with my husband.
Okay, so tell us something about your modeling career. How did you get into modeling? And
it was, again, I think the theme, I guess, was to do my best. So I noticed when we were growing up, we were the only the non-whites in Narragansett, and we were picked on quite a bit. So Papa was studying a lot. Mummy was trying very hard to keep the house, you know, structured and work. We were all a working family. And we would go to school, we would have all sorts of funny things. You know, people would throw food at us. Humko yaad hai ki bus pe people would trip us. Kya naam batate bolte the, you know, like they couldn't pronounce your name. Now I think Anu is such a short name, why can't you pronounce Anu? So you could do two things, right? You could become very reserved and sort of uncomfortable with your culture. Or you could become very, not boisterous, but gung ho about it. No, कि हम Indian हैं तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है. So I started wearing salwar kurtas every day to school. All 4 years of high school I was wearing salwar kurtas. Braids में डालते थे बाल को, नाक पे छेद कर दिए. उस समय तो, I mean, in the 80s there were no Indians.
No Indians at all. Yeah. So it was difficult.
It was very different, and people would. I still remember all the names that they would call you and the things they would do, and खाना फेंकते थे cafeteria में, all sorts of mean things. Kids
so
are.
How did you feel like that time?
How did
I mean, some people may just take it otherwise, and then they can have like all the low self-esteem and there can be. But how did you came out of it with this?
I think one of the biggest things, Didi thi meri, that was a big thing because she was older. She was very brilliant, and so even though there were a lot of teachers that I thought discriminated quite a bit, she kind of set a new precedence, you know, कि हम dark skin के हैं लेकिन हम smart भी हैं. हमको याद है कि the teachers would ask us, so do they still live in trees in India? All sorts of silly questions we would get, and we would be baffled, you know, कि गाँव में तो yeah, of course we climb trees, but we don't live in the trees. Here people climb trees, they don't live in the trees.
Here people do, of course. They go camping, you know.
That's true, they go camping, yeah, right. I mean, that's an adventure यहाँ पे, so why is it a bad thing? But that helped a lot. Didi was there, it was a very big thing. And it also helped that घर में मम्मी खाली हम लोग के साथ हिंदी बोलती थी. I have a fairly religious mindset. I don't think Hinduism is a religion per se, but it's a very big philosophy. And that philosophy is very ingrained in me. And that doesn't mean anything else is negative. It just means that I'm very comfortable with faithful.
I mean, faith and
I mean, and that whole thing, I keep thinking, you know, you can't only remember God when you're having a hard time, or whatever it may be. I can't remember my love for math when I'm having a hard time with math. It's got to be all the time because it spans you, who you are. So I think in that sense that helped in high school or elementary school. But a small story was when I was in 7th grade, I was in all the honor level classes. Sab mein, you know, achhe kar rahe the. And one random day, a guidance counselor person came up. He took me out of my classes and gave me a new schedule. And the schedule was for all the lowest level math course, lowest level English course, lowest level science course. And I was baffled. I didn't understand why. So I went to him and I went out of the class with him and I said, I don't understand why you're changing me for my classes. And उस समय हम लोग pre-algebra ले रहे थे, I think 7th grade में. And he brought me to an arithmetic math course. So I didn't know if I should be insulted or, you know, kind of, I was so surprised. Anyway, what ended up happening was Mommy went there 2-3 days. She stayed in the office till they answered why is my daughter changing classes. And the man came up and said, well, you know, we had a grant. We wanted to start a low level class, and we needed 18 people, and there were just 17, and we needed one more.